All right, right now we're in the segment of Awani Green Action, where Malaysia is at a critical point in its journey towards a green transition. And Malaysia's green industrial base has the potential to tackle worsening environmental crisis. However, challenges in technological upgrading persist. So Khazanah Research Institute, or KRI's latest publication, that's called Building a Sustainable Industrial Base, Malaysia's Green Transition by Azfar Hanif Azizi and Yin Shaolong, delves into the challenges facing our industries. So to discuss further, joining me on the line is Azfar Hanif himself, the Research Associate for Khazanah Research Institute, KRI. So mungkin firstly, Azfar, could you help us understand better on what are the key challenges Malaysia faces in building a green industry? If you could at least lay out one by one based on your recent research.
Hi, good morning, Nabila. I'll be great. It'll be great if I can lay down one by one the challenges that we discussed in our paper. So firstly, the first challenge that we discussed was, in chasing too much of a mitigation strategy. So mitigation is basically we're trying to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. So too much of doing that actually might, too much focus of policy of doing that might ignore another component of climate to tackle the climate change, which is adaptation. So focusing too much on climate mitigation without looking at climate adaptation poses risks on green industrialization itself, because right now the effect of climate change some of it has been locked in. So certain adaptations have to be done in order for industries and firms to survive. So that's one challenge. The second challenge is the challenge of deindustrialization. So deindustrialization, we have pointed out why this is a challenge, is that because when the industrial base of a country goes through deindustrialization, you might see some firms close down and bankrupt, and that means technological capabilities that were in the firm as well would also disappear. And that it also, with the disappearance of the firm, it also leads to less demand for workers, and your technological capabilities also would disappear. The third challenge that we've identified is industrial policy constraints. So this is due to the fact that we are in an era of free trade, at least from the 1990s to late 2010s, and now we're seeing a shift towards more protectionist policies by developed countries. But still, we are still part of the World Trade Organization. We have signed free trade agreements, and this imposes certain barriers on us to implement industrial policy strategies. So like in the past, countries that are currently developed, they could implement industrial policies to support their firms and support their industries, like giving direct subsidies, put export promotion, and things sort of like that. So right now, for us in this current era, and the fact that we signed so many FTAs, it imposes barriers for us to adopt those kind of policies. The fourth constraint, the fourth challenge that we've identified is actually fiscal policy constraint. As we know that ever since 2000, after the GFC, the financial crisis of 2008, successive governments after that have tried to reduce the fiscal deficit, right, because of our relatively high debt levels, or the concern over government debt levels. So when government tries to reduce the fiscal spending, what happens is we have less money to spend on industrial policies, on policies that we can still currently do under the current regime. So fiscal constraints also affect that. Next, we have the next challenge that I've also identified in the paper is the talent issues. So we have a shortage of talent for ambitious upgrading or for optimistic projections of FDI coming in. But at the same time, currently our talent are underemployed. So there's a mismatch of claims. But this mismatch of claims is more about a coordination issue. We have currently a lot of E&E graduates that are underemployed because of a decrease in R&D spending. But at the same time, we are also optimistic that the E&E industry will grow, and then we need this talent to upgrade. So there's a coordination problem there. The next challenge that we also identified is weaknesses in supporting R&D institutions. So if we we've tried to benchmark ourselves to more successful countries like Taiwan and Korea. So their best practice was to try and adopt technologies from available technologies from other countries and try to adapt them to the local conditions and let the local firms to try and adopt them. So in our context, we have not done that so successfully. And then in our R&D institutions mostly try to focus on commercialization of their own R&D products. So, and then I think our focus should be more on trying to adapt these technologies from overseas, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and then try to let our local firms adopt it. And then the last challenge that we've identified is the lack of big indigenous firms investing in technological development. So even though right now Malaysia does have a lot of big firms, but big firms don't really invest in technological development. So why big firms are important is because depending too much on FDI does not really allow us to technologically upgrade. I mean, if you have time, we can discuss that later.
Thank you for laying out one by one of these challenges. Maybe if I could ask you, which one of these challenges should be addressed most urgently to ensure rapid progress? Because we know we can't move everything all at once. So what's your opinion on this?
So the challenges that I think that we should immediately address is on the fiscal constraints and the industrial policy constraints. So fiscal constraints and industrial policy constraints are on the constraints on ability to act. So for you to act, you need to have the ability first. So if you have, if you're fiscally unconstrained, I'm not going to say fiscally unconstrained, if you have more money to spend, and then you have capability to spend in the sense that you can spend on different industrial policy instruments, then then once this is available, then you can implement the industrial policies, which would solve most of the other problems. It could solve the capability building problem, and it could solve the talent problem as well. So the fiscal policy constraints and the industrial policy constraints are the challenges I would say that are most important right now.
And there's a wide mention that in your research about marginalized communities such as Orang Asli. So what measures are being considered to ensure that marginalized communities like Orang Asli are actually can be involved and also not left behind in this green transition?
Right. We have discussed the situation of Orang Asli in their marginalization or industrialization and development in general in our paper. So with the case of Orang Asli, they are deprived in terms of education, poverty, and health. And these three factors, I think, are interrelated to one another, with poor outcomes in health are likely to influence poor outcomes in education and poverty, or the other way around as well. Poor outcomes in education likely to influence poor outcomes in education and poverty. So with the Orang Asli, the government, state government, the federal governments should try to address a lot of their immediate concerns. You know, a lot of it has to do with their infrastructure, the provision of education, electricity, clean water. We have to solve those issues. We have to pay people who provide services to Orang Asli better. So that's one of it. And then if we're going to look at affirmative action policies for them, we should try to specify a category just for them, because if we just look at Bumi Putra in general, it might not capture their situation. So there's that. And also, when we want to include them in development, we have to respect their rights, and we have to obtain their, basically, we have to obtain, it has to be out of their own volition. We cannot force them.
Frankly speaking, as far if we want to move forward and move, shall we say, bigger, we somehow have to rely by the larger and more competitive global players. But to what extent Malaysia should rely on foreign investments versus strengthening its domestic capabilities in building a green, reliable industrial base for a longer term?
Right. So reliance on foreign direct investment is good if for a developing country who is just starting out and they don't have capabilities in manufacturing. So when you're a country just starting out, your people are mostly still peasants, and then you're trying to modernize the economy, then bringing in a foreign direct investment to establish firms in the country is a good thing, because first it provides jobs, and then it can introduce some basic capabilities of manufacturing, of organizing things. It can also introduce some knowledge spillovers and some learning. But at a certain stage, usually when a country becomes a middle income already, then depending on FDI might actually prolong your situation in a low value-added production. So at a certain extent, once you become a middle income, and then when wages are being pushed up already, I think that is the time when we should not depend too much on FDI. We should then focus on building our own capabilities, because when you have a firm, a local firm linked to a foreign company as well, what could happen is that they can depress how much you can mark up on the services that you provide for them. So that markup reduces how much you can pay your workers and how much you can price your product. And then that dependency could also lead you to delinking, when if you try to upgrade your own products and then the FDI partner tells you not to, or tries to prevent you from competing with them. So it leaves you isolated. So what we should do is actually develop our own capabilities. In Malaysia's case, we don't really need to link, we don't need to have FDI to teach us basic capabilities, because we have reached the stage where we have a lot of our own companies. We have a lot of companies with basic project execution capabilities, with engineering capabilities. So we have those basic capabilities. And then we have companies that are of a certain size that can probably start investing. So for Malaysia, one of the things is perhaps we should focus on encouraging our big firms to start investing in technological goods. The advantages of big firms is that,
to sum everything up, sorry, we don't have much time. Our time's up.
Okay.
So to sum up, I can say that despite all these challenges, Malaysia's green transition is an opportunity to build a sustainable, tech-driven economy, and I hope we can ensure it benefits everyone as well. So thank you so much, I would say, to Azfar Hanif Azizi, Khazanah Research Institute's Research Associate. So we have a lot more to cover after this. We'll go for a short break. We'll be right back.